Good afternoon, YouTube. So, how are you doing today? I just wanted to talk to you about feminism. I've been reading a lot of historiography, and I think it's very vital for genderqueer, transgender, genderfuck, whatever you are. Feminism in America has had a huge influence on what we consider to be a woman and what we consider to be a man. And not all of it is positive. So if you read through historiography, one of the first organized, well, some of the early organized movements of women under this category of woman, in like the 1890s, they were moral crusading, moral reform. It was a very sanctimonious idea of woman as intrinsically virtuous and asexual, which is a very important thing, because that, and that led to the temperance banning, banning alcohol. They went after homosexuality. Isn't that kind of interesting that the first moral crusaders against homosexuality weren't really Christians? They weren't churches. The people who went after Oscar Wilde, it was in 1890s in England. It was a lot of moral crusaders, some of whom were men, like muckraking journalists. It was the beginning of the public sphere. But women under the banner of woman, organized as women, the first women's movement, part of it was to persecute prostitutes, homosexuals, masturbation. It was a movement to make the entire society virtuous and asexual, just like they thought woman was, this category woman. So, so this is just a thing that just keeps coming back. Whenever society separates out, my society anyway, bourgeois American society, whenever it separates out men and women, things get fucked up. And those same movements, those same social purity movements, they were really, they did not want men and women together, because they thought women were being corrupted. They wanted to keep women at home in the house. They didn't want them working. Women were working in the mines at the time, and they got pulled out of men's work because it was too morally corrupting for women to be there. And the early women, they campaigned against birth control too. They were, and it's just so funny, because then a lot of the things that, the anti-porn feminists in the 70s and 80s, a lot of things that they were calling patriarchy, it wasn't, I'm not saying it was only women who organized these things, these campaigns against birth control and against prostitutes and against pornography and against masturbation, but it looks to me like they were the core of the movement. They were the foot soldiers. The generals were men, mostly. You can't, that's undeniable. It's undeniable that it was men who had individual men who had the power to organize the public sphere. But, their willing henchmen were women. But, I'm sorry, I need to finish that thought. So, a lot of what cultural feminism, 60s feminism reacted against, it wasn't patriarchy, it wasn't what a man had put in place. It's a lot of what their grandmothers had put in place, and what their mothers put in place. Feminism, early feminism decided what a woman was. It and it became what their granddaughters rebelled against, and then blame men. You know, it's like, oh, great. It's so easy. As soon as you start dividing up men and women. But anyway, so to go further in a genderqueer kind of, you know, to get past gender, get past the limitations of gender, you know, these limited masculine and feminine social roles in bourgeois post Puritan society. I think it's important to stop organizing as woman, as feminist. It's important to get past that. I don't know what it's called, humanism, you know, what we'll do in the future, but this organization of feminine, it just keeps coming back, of woman as asexual and virtuous, and you see it now. If you follow transsexual feminism, not many people do, but it's, you know, it's a thing here in the Bay Area, in San Francisco. If you follow that, you know, what you see is these bands of different transsexual women fighting each other, mudslinging over who's a real woman. And those definitions of who are a real woman, they go back to this social reform movements of the 1890s, these moral reformers who are actually gender reformers. You know, these are the people who banned nudity from the public sphere and who really were, you know, separating boys and girls into different schools to bring us up separately. This thing where society, where American society, English society started to separate us out and have these whole technologies of social control that Foucault talked about so much. You know, it's institutions for creating gender, and you know, they've been there for about 100 years. Been there for 100 years. We should be able to change that. But one of the, I would say, conservative or reactionary movements is actually feminism and women's studies and these kind of thing, because it gives people who are in the female phenotype not only the right, but the duty to define what woman is, what this universal category woman is, and thereby also defining what man is. And so the fact that there is so little space for male phenotype people to act, to break out, is partly because, you know, feminists or woman-identified people are putting up the Berlin Wall to keep us out. To say, first we have to organize as women, first we have to have equality, first woman has to be triumphant, you know, kind of like the Marxist and their working class has to triumph, you know, and then we'll talk once we've won. But you can never win. It's a zero-sum game. It creates a stasis. So, tell me what you think. Does this resonate? I'd love to give some classes on this. If you're in the Bay Area, let me know. I'll put together something face-to-face. Bye-bye, sweeties.